Hello again. A reminder, first of all, to subscribe to my free newsletter. Each week, you'll receive 3 hacks to a healthier life and simple ways to improve your well-being, along with the latest medical advice, all straight from the show to your inbox. Just go to drhilaryjones.com. Now, my guests today are 2 parents who live through every family's worst nightmare. Jack and Antonia Cowmeadow lost their little girl Lorelei after a sudden and catastrophic illness that began with nothing more worrying than cold-like symptoms. Within hours, she went from a bright, bubbly toddler to being critically ill with encephalitis, a rare inflammation of the brain that can strike without warning. Antonia and Jack are now raising awareness to try and help other families who might find themselves in the same situation, and they join me now. Jack and Antonia, thank you so much for coming in to talk about this difficult subject. I can't even imagine the pain that it must have caused you to lose a precious daughter before her 2nd birthday from a complication of influenza, encephalitis in her case. I mean, this is very timely because we're approaching the winter flu season. People still think the flu, oh, it's a bad cold, you'd get over it. I might not have my vaccination even though I'm eligible. But actually, as you know, flu is a nasty disease. People are bedbound with it, with a raging temperature, raging sore throat, hacking cough, and complications can occur: sepsis, encephalitis, chest infections. Lorelei was approaching her 2nd birthday when she became very ill. Can you tell me how things panned out at that time? What actually happened?
So it was just a normal cold that she had. We'd had many before that. Being a sprightly kind of toddler at nursery, she had everything and anything.
They would pick everything up.
They pick everything up,
yep.
And yes, started on Saturday or Sunday. She was just snotty, nothing out of the ordinary. We thought, right, just another cold, we'll keep it at bay with Calpol and Nurofen. And that then she went to nursery as normal on the Monday, and she was again monitored. She had a high temperature, nothing untoward, still fairly normal from what she had had previously. And then I eventually picked her up, brought her home, and we had playtime that we usually do before bath, bed, bottle type thing. And then in the early hours of it was a Tuesday, Jack and I both heard a kind of loud kind of shriek type cry. Again, not unusual. She was beginning to settle through the night now, but occasionally she still wanted a kind of midnight feed. But Jack picked her up out of her bed, out of her cot, and we noticed there was something gravely wrong. She was kind of saying bottle, bottle, but she was struggling to get her words out. She was kind of slurring and grunting, and it then looked like she was convulsing. She was kind of arching her back and going like that, right, whilst Jack was holding her.
Right.
And I went downstairs to get her a bottle. Jack was upstairs with her, and that's when he said, I think we need to call, it's not a 111 situation, I think we need an ambulance.
Quite
Something
right.
is happening.
Yeah, so parental instincts kicked in. You saw that she wasn't normal, her normal self, that something was seriously wrong. So you went straight to A&E?
So, I mean, as Antonia says, Lorelei had her fair share of coughs and colds. I think a mother's instinct can sometimes be to err on the side of caution. I think I'm generally kind of a bit more relaxed about things. We have had to call 111 before, and she'd been to hospital and came out and everything was fine. But this time I knew something was seriously wrong. You know, she was speaking very normally and then made no sense at all. And she couldn't talk. Her eyes were kind of rolling in the back of her head. She was fitting. She was white as a ghost. And I was just panicking. You know, I screamed to Antonia, I was like, please, you know, get back upstairs, because she went to get the bottle from downstairs and Lorelei was in my arms. And then from there, we called the ambulance and they said they're on the way. It felt like an eternity, an absolute eternity, but it wasn't. It was probably 10 or 15 minutes within the NHS kind of guidelines of how quickly they should get to you. And then, they got here. They kind of took her from us, took her from her bedroom downstairs, put her on the sofa, kind of stripped her down. I was in a bit of a blur. I still don't think I realised quite how serious it was. I think you had heard something in our house where you knew this was bad news. And I don't think I realised the severity of anything until pretty much we got to the John Radcliffe. So that's from the Royal Berks over to John Radcliffe was when I actually realised, you know, we're going to the most severe, most serious place for children potentially in the country, up there with Great Ormond Street. That's when it started to dawn on me that this is really bad.
There's no reason why you would have known it was so serious. I mean, people might have seen a febrile convulsion. Did she have a temperature at the time?
We hadn't had a chance to check.
It all happened in a blur.
Yeah, it was kind of literally, let's get the ambulance here and go from there. And then, we were taken to the Royal Berks, and we were in the kind of A&E part, and she was surrounded by, at one point, probably 8 or 9 different people. And again, she was not with it at all. She was making just a perpetual grunt, just constantly grunting.
She was eventually put in an induced coma.
She wasn't making, I don't think they were seeing anything that they wanted to see in terms of results with her being conscious, so they had to put her in a coma. So those noises and things stopped.
Then there was one doctor who kept mentioning the brain.
Yeah, I remember that vividly. Yeah. So I think, I don't know if she was a paediatrician, the lady that we saw afterwards who was interestingly pregnant. She had just gone home, actually. She'd just done a huge shift and left at about 2 a.m. But they did page her and were like, I think we'd quite like you to come back because we can't really square the circle right now of the symptoms that are going on. But there was a doctor there who was insistent that he would like to look at her brain. Again, the signs weren't quite adding up, but he said, I really want to see her brain. But because the Royal Berks is not part of the same NHS trust as the John Radcliffe, they didn't want to do it in Reading necessarily because it wouldn't be on the same database when we got to the John Radcliffe. And things were moving so quickly that actually it was just better to get the John Radcliffe team to get over from Oxford and take her over there. It transpired it was a horrible freezing cold night. It had snowed in Oxford, so they were actually struggling to get out of the city to get over to us in Reading. So there was a delay, and by the time they got there, they were trying to settle Lorelei to be able to even take her over there, but she was actually reacting quite badly. Then for a minute it looked positive and they thought actually she's reacting well, and then it went, negatively again. So we were then shipped off to Oxford. You were in the ambulance with her, and I took the car and followed over. Spoke to my parents on the phone for an hour over there, and was quite calm actually. I was fully trusting in the fact that she was now, and no slight on Reading at all, but she's going to Oxford. This is kind of the top draw that she's going to get. It's obviously lined with the university.
Yes.
She's going to the best place possible. Yes. And in my head, I'm kind of thinking, they're going to turn this around. They're going to get to the bottom of it. We might have to spend some time here, but this is all going to be fine. And then we got to Oxford, and
because you were parking the car and I got out of the ambulance, and it was one of the main ladies, I think, she'd come with the Oxford team, and she was like, we've worked out she has flu. That's what this is. It's flu.
Okay. And at that time, was that reassuring to hear that?
I thought, essentially, I had thought she died in her bedroom. That's what a gut feeling. I thought she died in her bedroom, essentially.
Because of her changed behaviour was so
But then when
severe.
I heard flu, I was like, oh, flu. Okay, that's so much more manageable than cancer or other things that I'd kind of made up in my head. But it was the way that she said it.
Yeah.
And then I think from that followed sepsis and encephalitis.
Okay. And I do appreciate how hard this must be to talk about still. And I know that you're doing it to help other people. So I really appreciate that. You know, I'm sure you don't want to go over this time and time again, but this is going to help people as we approach the flu season. I know it is, and this this was the Tuesday now that all this was happening so fast. And then how did things progress from her being admitted to the
literally no time at all.
Yeah, so she was taken in the John Radcliffe, and obviously at the time, and you'll probably know better than us for this year as well, the John Radcliffe are actually taking flu more seriously than COVID.
Yeah.
They are actually more worried about flu than COVID. Yeah. So I don't know if last year was a bad strain. I'm aware that this year sounds pretty rough as well. So she was isolated, essentially, put into her own room, which was huge. It was kind of the same size as we are now. And it's beautiful in there. It's incredible. It's very, very well done, but very clinical. You know, double doors on the way in. You have to wash yourself and do everything to be able to go in there. But she was in there. You know, there's so much of it I honestly can't remember around kind of
timings.
What happened.
We had the top consultant come in and speak to us, and I think this was literally within maybe a few hours of us being at the John Radcliffe, so maybe mid-afternoon. And he said, there is a chance that she may pull through, but if she does, she will be completely brain dead. So she won't be able to eat by herself, walk, talk. She will be more or less a vegetable from what has happened to her body.
I don't remember how we got there, because they must have scanned her brain.
I think they did. That was
There's
before
two
we went.
different. So I know they had an MRI at one point, but I think that was actually towards the back end, more when she was going to die. But they must have scanned her, maybe a CT scan, or if it was one of the other way around. But
I think they did that before they sent her upstairs.
Yeah, so I think you realise you're obviously in a bad place. You're in child's intensive care. There's a lot of poorly children in there. But yeah, one of the kind of chief paediatricians, Michael Carter, who's an incredible human being, pulled us aside and took us into a kind of side room. And you know, we've watched enough TV and movies to know that you're not taken in there for a joke. So yeah, he told us that the kind of outlook on this is not looking good. She is potentially going to die. And that's when, your world falls apart.
Yeah.
I mean, no one can imagine what you went through at that point.
Yeah.
To be told there's a chance she might pull through, as opposed to there's a chance she could die.
Yeah.
Very different things.
But as Antonia said, pulling through and being so incredibly disabled.
Yes.
Either way, that week our life was going to change immeasurably.
Yes.
Having had her so able, and she was of that age where she wanted to do everything by herself. She didn't want mum and dad.
Yes.
She wanted to eat by herself. She wanted to put her shoes on by herself. So to then suddenly her not be able to do that was just kind of
devastating.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, they fought to keep her alive, presumably.
They did.
I honestly
can't fault them.
I cannot tell you how much we appreciate the people there. There was a girl in there who was a nurse who looked after her for the majority of it, who would be younger than us, and she's put herself into a profession, and a particular profession working with very, very sick children, where she must see some things
Horrendous.
that are horrific. But the way they cared for her, and they were speaking to her, even though she was in a coma, she couldn't hear them, but they treated her so incredibly well. And 2 or 3 of them cried to us, and you don't come to expect that from medical professionals, because it's your job to be fairly stoic and objective and offer.
But weirdly, that was so comforting.
It was so comforting because you realise that there's honestly no stone left unturned here, and they have done everything in their power to keep her alive. So we couldn't question it. You know, we told people the story afterwards, and I remember one lady said to us, well, no doubt it was the NHS's fault or something on the medical side that they didn't do, or they missed something. We would refute that
absolutely
instantly.
Of course, because there are some things that you can't do anything about.
No.
You know, with the best will in the world, the best efforts in the world, you know, these tragedies do still happen.
Yeah.
But actually, you're right. I mean, we are trained to be objective and not to take things personally. We can't help it sometimes. We're human beings, and we see a small child, you know, whose life is ebbing away, and of course we get upset, and we take this stuff home with us, and share it with our partners and our families, you know, within the realms of confidentiality, of course. But we feel it acutely. And then when she died, did they say it was encephalitis that was the cause of death?
So we've got the death certificate, and, you know, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense to us as laymen. You know, it might make more sense to you, but there's influenza, sepsis, encephalitis are all mentioned. I remember Michael Carter, the chief paediatrician, said to us there was a few things on there that he might potentially have not been hugely happy about, but lots of different people got involved. So I think a brain specialist came involved, and there's other people. So it had to say certain things. But effectively, it will be classed as flu that's killed Lorelei. The thing that we were just saying actually outside is we still can't quite square the circle of how flu has ended up attacking her brain. You know, your instinct would be that the lungs would be attacked. They were absolutely crystal clear. Yeah. So we have done some genetic testing. We were both taking some blood in the hospital. That's gone off. Interestingly, Oxford do a lot of that themselves, or Michael Carter's involved in that.
Right.
But the main lab is Exeter.
Yeah, so everything had to go to Exeter, and it can take more than 12 months. So we actually still don't know if Lorelei had a genetic disposition to something attacking her in such a way. But some good's going to come off the back of that. So Michael Carter's actually applied to the hospital and to the university to get that equipment in Oxford to be able to do that stuff quicker. So, you know, Lorelei is still impacting people now, even though she's not here.
Absolutely. You know, and that it is interesting, that kind of work. I mean, we know that 25% of teenagers carry the germs that cause meningitis, bacterial meningitis. And it's only a few of them where the germs seem to penetrate through the tonsillar area, and it can affect the central nervous system. We don't really know whether that's genetic or whether it's a random anatomical abnormality, but that research is ongoing, and hopefully that'll give you some answers, because you're always going to look for answers. But you're right, influenza, we know, is a viral infection, predominantly a respiratory infection, but it can cause complications such as middle ear infections, pneumonia, and then that gets into the bloodstream, blood poisoning, sepsis, and sometimes the virus or the toxins that are released by the body can attack the brain and cause encephalitis. And encephalitis is something that 77% of people have never heard of. Don't know anything about it. No reason why you would. I say it's not common. Globally, 1.5 million people a year affected, and in the UK it's several thousand. Do you know the number? It's something like 6,000, I think, are affected by encephalitis in the UK every year. And sometimes it's a direct infection. Sometimes it's an autoimmune encephalitis, which means that the body attacks the brain tissues themselves because it seems to recognise them as a foreign body as a result of whatever has happened to the body. So people don't know much about it in terms of the public. It's obviously very serious. and it comes on quickly. I mean, Lorelei was fit and bouncy and healthy a couple of days before she lost her life. And even a
few hours before, she was jumping around playing with you downstairs before going up to bath time.
Yes.
She certainly wasn't herself. I mean, when you brought her home, she came through the door, and I'll never forget it. It's one of my abiding memories, is she shouted "Daddy," because I had to work downstairs at the time. And she came through the door, and she wanted to be on or with both of us. I was actually still working, and interestingly, about to go to my first conference in my new job the next morning. So I was pretty busy and pretty stressed with stuff. But, you know, I had her on my lap on a Teams call with all of my team. They'd never seen her before. So strange that they saw her the night before this all happened. But yeah, she was super needy. She was warm. She was very, very grisly. But then she had a moment of absolute madness and was dancing and singing and having a great time. And we put her to bed as we would normally. And you put her to bed. I gave her a kiss, said goodnight, went and cooked dinner for us both. And we thought nothing of it. Yeah. And then, you know, come the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, our lives were turned upside down. And within, essentially 2-3 days, she had gone.
And you know, don't you, that you did absolutely nothing?
Yeah, that's the thing.
There's nothing you could have done. Nothing you could have spotted.
No, and that's, you know, we're more than happy to talk about this and try and help and raise the word. But I still struggle with the fact that there's nothing more that we could have done. Yeah. And I don't want. I said to you outside, I don't want to scare other parents into fearing the worst, because again, it just looked to us like a cold. So. And
at her age, I've got 6 grandchildren. They've all come down with symptoms like that regularly. They pick them up at nursery and elsewhere. And of course, most of the time it all settles down. You give them the Calpol
and it works like magic.
And it works like magic, and everything's fine. And that helps them to build up their immunity as they get older, which is all very good. So as soon as you spotted things weren't right, you called the ambulance. You did exactly the right thing. And sometimes there's nothing more you can do apart from try to make sense of it and then spread the word to help other people. Follow your parental instincts. As soon as you know something is wrong and it's not just a normal cold, you act on it, which you did. And it sounds like you've had brilliant help, both at the time and since.
Yeah. I mean, just on that point, one of the ladies that came to pick her up in the ambulance from John Radcliffe, she was one that cried with us at the end, and she said, I know this puts it in too blunt a point, but this is just a case of bad luck.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen very often, thank God, but it's horrible to say it in such a basic term. This is just horrific luck.
But when you have a professional telling you that, because as parents you think, did I miss something? Is this essentially our fault? Did we not do something? So to have a professional say that
absolutely
at the time was really helpful.
Absolutely important and vital that they did that. Tell me about Lorelei. What was she like?
You want to go?
You can go.
She was mad as a box of frogs. She was, she's a little lunatic. I don't know where she gets it from, but no, she's. We might be biased, but she's one of the prettiest, beautifulest little girls. We were kind of expecting with our hair colours that she would be fairly dark haired, but she was a very blonde little girl, very friendly, just adored her family. So both sets of grandparents, her aunties, her uncles. She went to a wonderful nursery.
Loved nursery.
The nursery were just incredible with her. Her development was incredible. She spoke incredibly well for her age. We know lots of other children who were nowhere near the same level of talking with her. So she would boss people around. My mum and dad were saying just a few weeks before this all happened, I think we went to a concert up in London, and she spent the evening at my parents', and they were all
Strictly.
watching Strictly together, and she turned around to my dad and said, "Clap, Grandad, clap," because they're all clapping at the end of a dance, so he was being told what to do. She had a sweet tooth like us. She loved her chocolate and her cakes and stuff. She'd not eat the good stuff, but find a way of finding chocolate or
as they do.
those little Madeleine cakes and stuff. So she was just a character, just a great little soul. And actually, we might have thought she didn't sleep as well as some other people, but we've heard way worse from some of our friends. She was actually, pretty good at sleeping through the night. Just a lovely little girl who touched a lot of people that she came into contact with.
Sure. You must miss her every day.
Yeah, I think it's weirdly easy in a way to talk about kind of what happened. I think because for us, when we were in the John Radcliffe and when we finally were told, because we were waiting for certain tests to be done so that she could donate what organs she had that we could give. And I think the first day or first week felt like an eternity of her not being here. So very quickly, we became a two again. You have moments where you are completely flawed, and I think the magnitude at times hasn't really hit us. No. But you do have to keep going. Yeah. I think because as far as we know, she wanted to live and she wasn't able to. It was taken from her.
Yes.
So I think that's what keeps us going with, we have to live for her. Otherwise it's such an injustice if we don't.
Absolutely. And you mentioned organ donation.
Yeah.
Did you do that as well?
Yeah.
You're amazing. You are amazing.
People say this to us, but I kind of think, I don't want to get too, into it, but I don't understand why you wouldn't personally. But, I understand there's some people may have religious beliefs and it's not part of that. But we said, look, the minute this is going the wrong way for us, if we can change someone else's life, why wouldn't we?
So that
is so lovely.
I think Michael Carter came back took us back into a room and very, very delicately asked us about organ donation. And I think without even looking at each other, we were like, absolutely, we're doing it.
Well, you're absolute saints. You really are. To deal with that, I mean, you have to, of course, at that moment. But when it's a small child, it's perhaps different from an adult.
Yeah.
But can I just say as well that the ladies and the team there explained everything to us in such a way of how delicate the procedures would be, how, it's not just a dead body. They will put you back together as if you were still alive. They would obviously keep her on the breathing apparatus until the organ donation team could come down. Obviously have to find a match for everything. So, the worst thing would have been is actually we didn't find a match.
Yeah.
And actually all of that stuff ends up not being useful.
Yes.
So actually her lungs were not able to be used because she had influenza, so they couldn't put that inside somebody else.
Yes.
I don't know what happened. Pancreas. Brain was obviously, none of that stuff was usable. I don't know about the heart, why that, but it transpired it was just her kidneys in the end that were usable.
But for somebody, that would have potentially life-saving.
I don't know how it happened, but if the call came that week or the week after, but they got taken, and then we had a letter afterwards that surprisingly it was given to a middle-aged 40-year-old lady, I believe. Right.
Well, how wonderful that something beautiful came out of something so awful.
Yeah.
That's really nice to hear. And I think this is so timely because as we approach the winter flu season, it's worth reminding people that the flu is not just a bad cold. It's a serious disease. It can have complications and sometimes they're lethal. Last year, there was an uptick in cases. Last winter, there was about 7,500 excess deaths, which is lower than the years that we've had before. And across Europe, about 70,000 excess deaths. And in the UK, about 53 children died as a result of influenza infection. So that's something that people need to just remember. and it always, I feel it part of my duty to remind people that, 100 years ago, most children died of infection. And it's a rarity, thank goodness, today, but it still happens.
Yeah.
And the best way to protect children and adults, and particularly the most at risk, is through vaccination. It's not perfect, but it gives a good level of protection. And in Australia, in their winter that's just gone, they've had the worst cases of flu for 7 years, and what happens there is likely to follow here. So that's why there's a campaign at the moment to encourage people. 2.4 million appointments available next week for people to come and get their jabs and go into the pharmacy and go and see their GP, get it done. And it does give good protection. Of course, school children are getting the nasal vaccine in schools, or if they're not at school for any reason, to get to the GP. So that's being done, and that remains important. So thank you. I know that you then had another issue with health.
Yep.
And so you had an ectopic pregnancy,
Yep.
Which initially wasn't spoiled. I mean, that's a medical emergency when the pregnancy occurs in the fallopian tube and the tube can rupture, which happened in your case.
Yep.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. It was so this was February this year. Jack and I didn't know we were pregnant at all.
Right.
And only found out when I was in a lot of pain. I think I was showing all the signs of an ectopic. Again, something else I didn't know really anything about, never read about it, didn't know anything about it. And an ambulance came because I was really not doing very well. They tested and said, "You're pregnant." And I knew it wasn't going to be viable just because of everything, all the symptoms that I was showing. And I think it was, a missed ectopic, a space of like a week. And it resulted in us racing to A&E on a Sunday. I collapsed, blacked out in A&E. And I think it was then found I had about a litre of blood in my stomach.
Wow.
Just kind of freely moving around. I needed a blood transfusion. I lost my right fallopian tube. And I think we were able to see photos. I think the fetus was about 8 weeks old, and that was missed. Yeah.
Well, look, you've got through two tragic things, but I'm really delighted to be able to say at the end of this podcast that you've got some great news. You have got some fantastic news that is going to make everybody watching this smile, because, tell us.
We are pregnant again.
That's wonderful, wonderful. How many weeks?
We are 28 weeks today with another baby girl.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And I know that everything's going to go swimmingly this time round, and the health service will be there for you.
Yeah.
And we want to hear about the outcome in due course. We want to see the photos. If you'll share it with us, we'd be absolutely thrilled and delighted. And just thank you so much for sharing that story, that I hope will resonate with people, that I hope will people sit up and take notice about the importance of vaccination, about, parental intuition. If you're worried about your child, no one else is going to. You've got to, as parents, and you've done all the right things. And I think that will be very, very comforting to anybody going through something similar. And you've shared it with us, which will help thousands of people potentially. So thank you. And you're so strong as a couple. You've done so many right decisions and got through so much, and you remain strong. And I can't wait to hear what you called the baby and how it goes. So please keep us posted, won't you?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Jack, Antonia, thank you so much. My thanks to Antonia and Jack. You can watch all of my interviews on the Dr Hilary Show YouTube channel, including my recent conversation with Tyler West.
When I was about 14, I went for a lot of stuff at home. Like my stepdad became an alcoholic. My mum and stepdad broke up. I witnessed a murder outside my house. There was a lot of things in amongst when I was like 2010, it was like the worst year of my life. Lost my granddad. There was a lot. And then I started going back. I took a lot of time out from school at that point. I was in my bedroom for about 2 years, suffering with mental health.
You were 14 then?
I was 14 at the time that it happened.
Okay.
And then one day I just woke up and I was like, okay, I can't keep like staying low. My mum managed to get us moved out of the council house into another housing association. Like she was begging the MPs, the police, like, please help, my son won't come out of his bedroom. Can we please move house? Because it happened literally outside the house, the murder. Managed to get a move, and then I puckered up the courage and confidence to go back to school. And they started doing this after school club, saying handball. And I used to play basketball. So I said, oh, I'll give it a go. And then started scoring a load of goals. And they were like, oh, you're pretty good at this. Tried out for the South England team, got into the England team, then got into the Great Britain squad. And it was during a training session for the Great Britain squad that CBBC came in. It was a show called Friday Download. And they interviewed me and said, how do kids get involved in sport? And I did like 20, 30 seconds on camera. And they were like, oh, you're pretty good at presenting.
Yeah.
You ever thought about it? And then after that, I was like, no, I haven't, but now I am.
Excellent. Before you go, for the latest health news delivered straight to your inbox each week, subscribe to my newsletter at drhilaryjones.com. We'll keep the conversation going about your health, your well-being, and what truly matters to you.